If you're a beginner photographer who's trying to become full-time this year, then this is the video for you. In this video, I'm going to start off from the extreme basics and work our way up so that you can be on the right path. If you're wondering why you should listen to me, my name is Dane Nelson. I've been a photographer for the last 10 years, which has allowed me to make a full-time living, travel the world, and I guess overall have a pretty exciting life. Also, I'll have a free downloadable action guide that will give you these exact same steps that I've laid out in this video. So definitely stick around to the end. If you want to be a photographer, gear matters, right? So you're probably wondering, what should I get first? So the first piece of advice I'm going to give you is decide on a budget. People ask me all the time, what is the best camera to get? You know, what camera should I buy? Should I get Sony? Should I get Canon? The truth is, it doesn't matter. Honestly, your best piece of equipment or the best gear for you is just simply based on your budget. If you have $1,000 to spend, speaking in USD by the way, not JMD. Guys, if you have 1,000 JMD, stick with your phone. But yeah, if you have 1,000 USD, 500 USD, you're gonna have different options. So basically you have to pick the camera for you based on the amount that you want to spend. For me personally, when I started, I didn't have the biggest budget there was, but I was able to have like a decent budget at the time. So I had probably like $500, which something I'll suggest to you is if you have like probably not the biggest budget, feel free to buy like a used camera. Used cameras are actually pretty good. You can get a pretty good camera that's probably not, been beat up, and you can spend probably like half the price or a quarter of the price and have that for a very long time, especially if you're not sure if you're going to commit. This is something you should really decide on if you're going to commit to before you spend thousands of dollars. You really need to know how much is it that I want to invest in, and then from there you can really get started. I'd say if you're an absolute beginner and you're a little bit unsure, maybe you can start with 500 USD or 1,000 USD. If you're going to spend any amount of USD, research the camera you're considering buying. Personally, I shoot Sony, and the reason why I shoot Sony is because at the time when I purchased this camera, Sonys were actually very well priced versus other brands that were good at both photography and videography. For me particularly, I was trying to do both video and photo, so I wanted a camera that was going to be good at both. Currently, a lot of the cameras are a lot more competitive. Nikon is releasing good cameras that are good at video and photo, so is Canon. But at the time when I just started getting more serious, Sony had just started its whole hybrid line, and it had some really good cameras that were perfect for both video and photo. Right now, I would say it almost doesn't matter. The main thing you need to know is, okay, you need to have some kind of device, whether that's going to be your smartphone. If you don't have the money to buy a camera, you can start off with your smartphone, learn the basics and slowly invest. It can be a used film camera, it can be a used Sony camera. I would say get yourself a camera and an appropriate lens. So based on your budget and what you can afford, I'd say just get any particular brand. If you're getting a Sony or a Canon, it doesn't really matter which brand, it just matters that the camera has the particular features that you need. Look up stuff like, okay, does this camera shoot 4K? Am I going to need 4K footage? Does this camera have fast burst modes because I'm going to be shooting sports photography? Focus on what it is that you're trying to go into and look if the camera has the features for that. Next thing is lenses, which is going to be super important as a beginner. I would say you're going to buy your first lens based on what you're doing. So if you're doing portraits, for me as a portrait photographer, you're definitely going to need to get a 50mm lens. That is a lens that just looks absolutely amazing for portraits. You're also going to probably want to get an 85mm. But if you're not going to be doing only portraits, maybe you're doing sports photography, then you might want to invest in a zoom lens. You probably don't need a lens with a fixed. Matter of fact, I apologize guys, I'm assuming you know what those things means. So basically, you have two types of lenses. You have prime lenses and you have zoom lenses. A prime lens is basically a lens that is stuck in one position. So the only way for that lens to work is you're going to move physically forward and back to change the distance. So the reason why I personally like prime lenses is because they typically are sharper, and they also have, without going into too much technicality, but they typically have faster apertures, which that is something you're probably gonna have to learn about later too, but I like it for those reasons. But if you're doing stuff like weddings, if you're doing stuff like events, you might not have the luxury of always being able to move up and down, so you might need access to a zoom lens, especially if you're doing like weddings. I mean, when I was doing weddings, prime lenses are horrible because you don't want to be in front of everybody during a wedding, so you have to get an appropriate zoom lens. So think about the style of photography that you want to do and then invest appropriately in lenses. You do not need to buy the most expensive lens. Also, just like camera bodies, you can buy used lenses. Just make sure the lens can do what it is that you're trying to do. Invest appropriately. There is a lot of consumerism going on right now. Everybody's going to tell you to get this 6K camera that does this and 52 megapixels. It really doesn't matter. You just need to focus on your exact needs and get that. At first, when you become a successful, rich photographer, you can buy all the gear you need, buy all the gear that you don't need to, but for now, just buy exactly what you need so that you can focus on the other areas of your business. Because we're not just trying to be photographers who own a lot of camera equipment, we're trying to have a successful business. All right, here's some other stuff I'm gonna recommend you get as it pertains to gear. You're gonna need a tripod. Starting off, you don't have to buy the most expensive tripod. I would say to buy a decently priced tripod. You know, you have some really cheap tripods, but to be honest, if you're gonna spend $500 to $1,000 on a camera, I'd suggest to get maybe a $200 tripod, or at least a tripod that is gonna be relatively sturdy, because you do have some cheaper tripods for maybe like $50, less than $50, but they're very flimsy. And even though the cameras might be smaller, you don't want it to turn over with your, you know, moderately expensive camera. So yeah, invest appropriately with your tripod. You're gonna wanna get a camera bag to store your camera in. Also, to carry this around, you wanna get something that is decent, because you don't wanna buy an expensive camera and have it in, you know, cheap transportation. You're also gonna wanna get memory cards, which honestly, for the most part, unless you're shooting some super high quality video, most memory cards will be fine. You're also gonna wanna get, what else am I thinking of? A flash. Now, different styles of photography will require flash. If you're doing lots of outdoor portraits, maybe you don't need a flash immediately. If you're doing lots of daytime stuff, you might not need a flash immediately, but that is something to look into over time. But those are some things that come up to me off the rip. Let me see if I would suggest anything else. Have some stuff written down on my phone. Editing software. If you're gonna be doing photography, you're definitely going to need to invest in some kind of editing software. There are free ones, but just think about, you know, trying out the popular ones that you might have to pay for, which is Lightroom and Adobe Photoshop. You know, there's also Capture One, but I personally don't use that. I use the Adobe suite. So you can look into different editing software, see which one works for you. But these are things you can look into. They're gonna be preference based. But the main thing that I'm gonna leave you guys with, invest in a camera appropriately, whether that's gonna be a used body or it's gonna be a brand new body. It's all based on your budget. The brand does not matter, whether it's Sony, Canon, Nikon, Olympus, whatever. All you have to do is make sure the camera has the exact features that you need. The lenses, all you need to do is ensure that the lens matches the style of photography that you're doing, whether it's portraits, weddings, events. You need to get yourself a good tripod, a good camera bag, some good memory cards, and proper software. Got it? Don't worry, if you didn't get everything, actionable guide will be down below. You can download that and you're good to go. All right, so the next piece I'm going to touch on is practicing your shooting. So once you've gotten your camera gear, the first thing you're going to have to do is go out there and get in your practice. I've done numerous videos on learning the basics of photography, so I won't really be going into details of that. All I can say is, based on your style, you're going to have to learn, well actually, you're going to have to learn all the basics regardless, but based on your style, you're going to have to go even further in particular areas. So you're gonna have to learn about lighting, you're gonna have to learn about, you know, color temperature, you're gonna have to learn about colors, you're gonna have to learn about all these different things that, you know, help you to take better photos. Once you've done that, then you're gonna start building your portfolio. Now this is the part I'm gonna spend a lot of time on, because that's gonna be super important. So as it pertains to building your portfolio, that's gonna be key in you actually becoming a really, you know, good photographer. Or not even a good photographer, a really successful photographer. You have to have a solid portfolio to become a good photographer or a successful photographer. If you want to be a concert photographer, go out there and shoot some concerts. If you want to be a portrait photographer, go out there and shoot some portraits. Basically, I know lots of times, you know, you start off, you're gonna probably wanna do anything you can just to get experience. The best advice I can give to you is to niche down, kind of figure what it is that you want to do and go do as much of that as possible, because whatever you put out is what you'll be known for. So it's gonna be very important for you to build a portfolio of the things that you want to do, because if you do weddings, then people aren't gonna call you for music videos. I mean, some people might, but most people are gonna call you for weddings. So you have to really decide what is it that I want to do. And if you do want to do everything, then I guess that's technically okay, but don't beat yourself up when you want to do music videos or you want to do fashion photography, but all your work pictures of flowers and it's hard for you to get bookings for fashion photography. So I mean, really go out there and build that portfolio that you want. If you want to do travel photography, you might not always get, you know, a booking to do a travel thing, and especially if you're just learning, it's going to be hard for you to get that. So maybe you should just go to that place, bring your camera, take some pictures, you know, bring some friends, and use that as your portfolio. Like it's easy to build a portfolio of what you want to do as long as you know what you want to do. So you need to create a strong portfolio. How are you going to create a strong portfolio? Look to people that are in your area that you want to focus on and see what you can recreate that they've done. See what they aren't doing and see how you can add to that. Find ways to kind of penetrate the market, because yes, it's a creative thing, but it's also a business. You have to think of it as a business if you want to become a full-time photographer, because yes, art is amazing, but it's honestly going to be very hard for you to go full-time if you're not thinking like a business, because you're competing with millions of people all over the world, millions of photographers, or maybe thousands. But yeah, definitely build a strong portfolio and ensure that it has the work that you want to be known for. All right, so now we're on the super spicy part, securing clients. So now you actually have your gear, you've created your portfolio, and you've practiced some editing stuff and some shooting stuff. Now it's time for the real business part. First thing we're going to start off is defining your audience and defining your niche. Now, since you bought your gear based on what you're doing and you shot your portfolio based on what you want to do, then this part is going to come extremely easy. So now we're on to the really juicy part, which is getting those clients. Now, based on the fact that I directed you to do everything around your audience, it's going to be easy for you to define what you want to do. If you're trying to be a concert photographer, if you're trying to be a wedding photographer, again, I'm not trying to box it in that you can't expand what you do, but as a business, it's going to be easier for you to get clients if you define what services you offer. And yes, you can be a jack of all trades, but persons that niche down and kind of define their audience find that it's easier to penetrate the market. Because if I'm getting married, I'm not looking at persons that do everything. I'm looking at persons that do weddings. If I am looking for a portrait person, I'm not looking for a person that I guess shoots product photography. So you get what I'm saying. Basically, if your audience is already defined, it's going to be a lot easier for you to push your particular style and portfolio. And yes, you can build a portfolio of everything, but it just makes it kind of harder for you to stand out. So in order to get that audience, something that is very new to the scene that I guess I kind of used when I was coming up is social media. Listen, if you're a photographer, you need to be posting your content. You need to create an Instagram page, you need to create a website, you need to create some form of social media presence. If you're in a particular area, try to, hashtag the area that you're located in, try to, align with any online things that are happening in that area. Like, utilize social media to push your content. Social media makes it a lot easier for persons to reach an audience without spending thousands of dollars, because trust me, normally you'd have to spend crazy amounts of cash to kind of, become something or to be able to reach a particular set of people. But now you can make a post on Instagram and you have so many people are reacting to it, so many potential customers that are seeing your work. So you just need to utilize social media as much as possible. Don't be afraid to showcase your work, showcase your growth, showcase your journey. People are there that just want to learn about you. And when I say social media, I'm going to get very specific. Instagram is great for photography, but also YouTube is very good too. A lot of potential clients are on YouTube. You can showcase your work from a photographer standpoint. You can showcase your work from how you can help people in their business. There's so many angles you can take. So utilize YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. There is no barriers when it comes to social media. Just make sure you are constantly uploading your work and putting yourself out there. All right, next thing I'm going to touch on in terms of getting your clients is networking in your local community. This should be a no-brainer. If you're a photographer, everybody in your community should know you're a photographer. Closed mouths don't get fed. You can't want to be a photographer and nobody knows about the people on social media. That's the next thing. Yes, social media is important, but guys, you can't have two separate lives. Your social media life should be your life, unless maybe you live in two lives. But listen, if you're a photographer, the person down the street should know, oh, there's a photographer up the road, because that person can refer to somebody else. Everybody that is, in your immediate surrounding should know that you offer this service and that you're available and that you're ready to work, because that's how you're going to become a full-time photographer. If you want to do this full-time, everybody needs to know. You can't hide your talent, you can't hide your skill, you can't be afraid. Go out there and tell everybody, especially if you took the time to buy that gear, practice the work, and build that portfolio. Don't be shy. Like, go out there and network with everybody in your immediate surrounding. Connect with other professionals. So yes, photographers would, I guess, generally compete, but you never know. Like, personally for me, I reach out to wedding photographers all the time because I'm like, hey, do you want a second shooter? Maybe you shoot video, you want to shoot some videos too. Maybe you want some BTS when you're shooting videos. Maybe I can do some headshots for you. Maybe there's a job that they don't want to take. I know it's easy to look on other photographers as your competition, but sometimes they could also be your biggest, friend, your biggest referral, because the reality of it is there's actually enough work for us all. Contrary to popular belief, there is a lot of work out there. It's just that some people have this very scarce mindset, and I don't want to get spiritual, but the reality of it is a lot of other photographers could be your potential gateway into, client and work. And I would say to you that don't think of it as a one-way street. If you're even networking, try to see how you can give them value. So maybe you're reaching out to offer them, some help on a shoot, or maybe you're reaching out to them to say, hey, I see where you could improve this on your page. And that might be a way you guys can build a connection, because you never know who could be that person that's going to elevate your business. So that is another example of how you can get clients from other people in your industry. So it's like, don't limit yourself in any way. Many times people will think of, competition and this and that, but listen, there's so much successful people out there. You don't need to be worried about competition as long as there's a demand, and there's a demand for photos. Like, we have social media, so like there's always going to be that demand. Some other points I'm going to touch on is your online presence in terms of your website. Yes, it's really good to have a website. You don't necessarily need one, because you can always host your portfolio on Instagram or any other like online site. But the benefit of having a website, it does look more professional to send persons to your website. Also, if you have a website, it's easier for you to rank on Google in terms of your SEO. And something that's really nice for having a website is if you decide to maybe create like an emailing list, or any other specific access that you want to host on your website. It's always good to have access to your people outside of Facebook or Instagram, because technically you don't own Facebook or Instagram. They can kick you off those platforms at any time. But if you have your own website with your own emailing list, which an email list is just people that subscribe to you from your website or whatever, those people, you have access to that, permanently, because you own that. So it's always good to have, stuff that you own, which, remember that all these social media platforms, we don't directly own them. So it's good to have access to that directly. Big deal right now, super big deal that I'm going to touch on that I started on very late is advertising. Listen, I slept on advertising because I spent lots of time doing in-person networking and connecting with a lot of persons in my community, going to a lot of like professional events. But like, honestly, you'd be surprised to know what ads can do for you. I've recently started running ads on Facebook, and I have to say it's been absolutely amazing. Now, to be honest, I was running ads before. I was lying just now. I've run ads in 2016 and 2015, but I had no idea what I was doing. I just, put some money online and I selected random targets, and it worked. I won't lie to you, it worked. But I was pretty cheap, to be honest. So I don't think it was hard to sell. And in all fairness, I think it was a time when there was less competition. But right now, I can definitely say I've, been doing ads, and I did a whole course on ads, and I had to say, like, if you're a new business, like if you're a brand new business with not a lot of followers and maybe not a lot of, traction going on, ads can really help you to find the exact persons that you want to find. Spend some time, do some research, learn about Google ads, learn about Facebook ads, learn about digital ads, because it is amazing what you can do. And especially if you're doing photography, which is what I call a high ticket service. And what a high ticket service is something that you sell for a lot more money than most other services. Like a photo shoot can cost, anywhere from maybe like $300 to like $400, $500, and that's probably on the lower end. So, you could spend maybe like $50 in ads, and one booking could give you back that ad spend and way more. So it's like, don't be afraid to invest in paid advertisements. If you don't know how to do that, learn that, research it. It's definitely going to do a lot for you. Other points I'm going to touch on is go to professional conferences and networking events. This is something that has done a lot for me. I've gotten so much big clients from going to conferences. As a wedding photographer, I try to go to bridal expos all the time. You meet amazing vendors, you meet potential clients, and you meet lots of successful people. As a YouTuber, I try to go to any YouTube conference, like just anything, like any business conference, anywhere where you can network with professionals. This is a great place to upsell your photography. Everybody needs photography. Businesses need it. artists need it. Like if you want to do concert photography, go to music conferences, go to concerts, like find those places for what you're trying to do, get there, get in the scene, penetrate the market. If you're doing all those things, you're sure to get clients. Now I understand that it might seem a bit far-fetched, especially if you don't have any clients right now, and you're gonna get a couple of no's, you're gonna get a couple of people that are gonna ghost you. Just don't be disheartened, it's a numbers game. When I just started, giving you a personal experience, I had a lot of no's. I went as far as to just walk into businesses at the time and tell them I was having a special. When I was having no such special, I made it up, and on the spot I maybe got like 10 no's, but one yes was enough to basically make all those no's, you know, pointless, because I was able to make enough money to like make all this make sense. So it's just like, don't be afraid to get rejected, don't be afraid to get ghosted, don't be afraid to get, you know, even responded to and then ghosted. But you just need to get, you know, just your foot in the door, because that will lead to more, because that's going to be something else on your portfolio. It's going to lead to more work, which is going to lead to more things. So it's like, just keep going. It's a numbers game. If you had that strong portfolio, you have the gear, you have the skill set, you're going to get work. Just keep doing it. Don't stop. And next thing is, don't get complacent. I think what happens to a lot of persons, when maybe they get like maybe 1 client or 2 clients, they get very complacent. If you're trying to do this full time, you need to have a good amount of clients that you know will stay with you consistently. You need to foster good relationships, because it's not just about taking good pictures, it's also about having good relationships with people. So you need to just focus on stuff like that, and you're gonna do good. So I know that was very lengthy, but I need to make sure you guys know how to maintain clients and know how to get clients, because if you don't have clients, it's not gonna work. So again, I feel like if you're doing all those things, going to those conferences, going to those events, you know, networking with photographers, networking in your community, you are bound to get work. Now, here's the really, really important part. Now that you've done all those things and you've, you know, gotten your work, you have your gear, all those things, there's something I really want to touch on I think is very important, and that's gonna be about burnout. Now, trust me, as someone that's been doing this for many years, there's many times that I am honestly like tired of this industry sometimes, because it can be very overstimulating. You're competing with lots of persons, not just in your area, but online, you know, persons from other countries. It's just a lot to deal with, and I think it's important to touch on, like, you know, not burning out while you're on this journey, because the truth is you can get to a very far point, but in order to stay successful, you actually have to maintain yourself. So I wrote down some stuff to touch on, like helping with burning out. And the first thing I want to say is set realistic goals. You are probably not going to become a multimillionaire photographer in the first year, maybe not even the first 2 to 3 years. Don't set unrealistic expectations. Not to say that miracles don't happen, but go in there with realistic goals. Maybe your first goal is to get 1 client for the month or 2 clients. Don't go in there expecting to get 10 clients because you saw some video on social media. Be realistic. You know, not that you don't want to aim high, but just don't disappoint yourself in trying to expect the most, especially in the beginning. It's really important that you understand that this is a long-term thing, not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It actually takes work. If you see people that are getting booked all the time, it's because they were putting in the work for a very long time. Next point, embrace continuing learning. Something I see happening all the time, especially with older photographers, is that they hate the change so much. Back in the days, photography used to be this thing where it was hard for lots of people to get into because cameras were so expensive. It was hard for people to just get into it. Now, because cameras are so cheap, almost anybody can be a photographer, and it makes a lot of older photographers upset. They don't feel as elite anymore. They don't feel as, I guess, sought after, because honestly, anybody can just take up some cash and buy a camera and call himself a photographer. So the barrier to entry isn't as high. Lots of persons are resentful. But here's the thing, when the barrier to entry gets lower, you just have to improve your skill set. Like honestly, it was a lot harder when I just started photography. I know lots of persons that just started and, you know, they've gotten to places that took me a while to get to, but I don't feel resentment. Why? Because I'm good. And also that just means that there's more opportunity. That just means that there's more room for me to grow myself. So it's like, don't be afraid of change. If the way cameras take photos change in the next couple of years, I'll just move on with that. Like, you can't be fighting the industry. Like, work with the industry, work with the stuff that happens. Don't be bitter because you can't control it. So please, I I just despise the older generation of photographers that feel like the new people aren't photographers. Like, listen, if people are taking good pictures, they're photographers. Don't be a hater, accept the change. It's not gonna stop changing. So yeah, work with it. Take breaks. Now this is something I struggle with. I find it very hard to take a break. As an entrepreneur, your personal life and your social life are very intertwined. So it's hard to separate work from play. I still struggle with this, so I'm telling you, take breaks, especially when they're needed. Don't work yourself into the grave. Your business relies on you to be able to output. So just, you know, do some rest time. Take some time off the screen. Go for a walk. Like, I go to the gym fairly often, and that's something that helps me. I like to be outdoors. But find something that you can do, you know, play an instrument, you know, go with your girlfriend, go with your boyfriend, whatever it is. But just find something to do that is not only photography. Don't make it take up all of your life. Also, celebrate your small wins. Maybe you didn't get the client, but maybe you took a really nice photo. Maybe you bought a piece of photography gear that you thought was really important to you. Maybe somebody said they liked your work on Instagram. Celebrate the small wins. You don't need to get the biggest of accolades to celebrate yourself. Just keep trying to be inspired and remember why I started this thing in the first place. Because again, it is very easy to get burnt out, especially when you're comparing yourself to every single person on the internet. Listen, that is the quickest way to get disappointed, because you'll see people that start maybe like months after you, or you've been doing this for years and you're not able to do half of what other people are doing. Comparison is a thief of joy. Just don't be afraid to just focus on you. So honestly, I think with all those tips, you should be on the right path. If you follow everything I just said in this video, you are definitely going to be getting started as a full-time photographer. It might take you longer than a year, but who knows? You could break through in 3 months, 6 months. All you gotta do is follow those exact steps and you're good to go. And again, I'll leave a downloadable action guide in the description for you guys, so you can download that and check off the individual steps. Now, if you like this video, then YouTube says you're gonna like this video right here.